from the betting capital of the world, giving raw and real breakdowns of mixed martial arts and recapping UFC events like no one else, with producer Martin on the ones and twos and combat sports betting expert Effie. You're listening to Any Action Sportscast. Any Action Sportscast. So put your headphones on and let's take this podcast to the next level.
This isn't a podcast. It's a sportscast.
What is up, guys? We are back. Finally, after a super long layoff, the UFC returns this Saturday for UFC Vegas 67. Sean Strickland versus Nasruddin Imavov. This is a late notice replacement fight. We've had a crazy fight week on Monday. Kevin Gastelum got injured, and Sean Strickland on short notice steps up and takes this fight. This will be happening at 205 now, not 185. And just respect to Sean Strickland, man. Hats off for taking this fight. This dude actually headlined the last UFC card, so he's actually headlining back-to-back UFC cards. Pretty rare. I don't think it's ever been done. But yeah, we'll get into that later on in the video. Before we do that, guys, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And, you know, we got a ton of fights to talk about. I'm expecting a lot of violence on this card. I think that this fight card can be done pretty quickly considering all the finishes I expect to happen. So with that, let's get right into it. The very first fight of 2023 will be a women's flyweight fight between Priscila Cachoeira and Sijara Eubanks. Priscila comes in with a 12-4 record, 4-4 in the UFC, currently sitting as a plus 200 underdog. Sijara Eubanks on the other side comes in with an 8-7 record, 5-5 in the UFC, and currently sitting as a huge minus 240 favorite. If you look at the tail of the tape, Cachoeira will be 3 inches taller and have a 2-inch reach disadvantage to Eubanks. Eubanks is, though, guys, 37 years old, while Cachoeira is 34. Eubanks is almost 38 now. That is a bit of a red flag, but I am picking Eubanks to win this fight. I can't trust someone like Priscila Cachoeira because she's so hittable, man. She has that, you know, you hear the term take one to give one. Well, she takes 7 to give 2. Her stats are terrible. She absorbs 7 significant strikes per minute in the UFC, which is absolutely just mind-blowing. And her IQ is just not good, guys. If you watch the Kim fight, Kim just, you know, a kickboxer, she can get taken down by a gust of wind. Kim has like a 40% takedown defense, and the whole fight, Cachoeira was just walking her down, has her on the warning track, pretty much against the cage the whole time, and chooses to fight on the feet for 15 minutes. She got 1 takedown in that whole fight. And, you know, granted, she's not the best wrestler. It's not like, it's probably a sign that she's not good at getting takedowns. It's probably why she didn't attempt so many. But it just shows that she didn't even try. Like, it was very bizarre to watch her get pieced up pretty much for the first 12 minutes of that fight. And in the end, she started putting it on Kim. And I walked away from that fight thinking, okay, well, she doesn't have the greatest fight IQ, but she has heart, man. She has heart, and she's going to be in there the whole fight. She'll fight for your money for sure. But she has a huge grappling disadvantage, in my opinion, here to Eubanks. Eubanks should be able to get this fight to the ground. And if she does it just one time in every round, the round could be over. I mean, we saw what happened to Elise Reed. Now, granted, Elise Reed's nowhere near, you know, the wrestler that Eubanks is, or grappler, and Eubanks treated her like the plus 300 underdog that she was that night, got her out instantly. Same thing with Priscila Cachoeira, though, in her last fight against Lipski. Cachoeira was a plus 200 underdog, and if you would have watched that fight, you would have thought she was minus 500. She just wrecked Lipski, man. On the feet, she's dangerous. I will say this, though, guys, she fights with her hands kind of low for my liking. Who knows, you know, it might help her here defend some takedowns, but it definitely hasn't hit her before, so I don't know why it would now. But she does fight with her hands a little low. On the feet, though, I mean, with that striking defense and that lack of takedown ability, I don't see how Eubanks loses this fight, other than getting knocked out by Priscila Cachoeira here, who will be throwing bombs, guys, the whole fight. I expect, you know, right when the fight starts, you ready to fight, go. I expect Priscila to walk down Eubanks pretty much right from the jump. But I think that she might get overextended and lead herself to get taken down here. So I think the grappling advantage is so wide for Eubanks here that I have to pick her. But her age and the line being minus 240 is just too much for me. I am staying away betting wise, but the official prediction will be Eubanks via decision. I'm super excited to talk about this next fight in the flyweight division. We have the return of White Habib, Jimmy Flick versus Charles Johnson. Jimmy Flick comes in with a 16-5 record, 1-0 in the UFC, currently sitting as a massive 280 underdog. Charles Johnson on the other side coming in 12-3, 1-1 in the UFC, currently sitting as a massive 360 favorite. Now let's start with this line right away. So this line opened around Charles Johnson minus 180, and I don't know how, but it ballooned all the way to like minus 500, guys. Like, that's insane. Like, that's insane. And I feel like at that point, plus 400 on Jimmy Flick, it's almost like that, what do you call it? That State Farm commercial with the guy with the fishing reel and he's dangling the dollar and the lady's like, almost got it, almost got it. They're just dangling 400 on Jimmy Flick plus 400 and it's like, dude, I have to take it. But I didn't have access to that line, and I think he's getting a finish here by Charles Johnson. Let's start with Jimmy Flick, though. I called him the White Habib earlier, and that's because when he was on Contender Series, you know how they always like cut to the fighters and they give a little bit of an inspirational little spiel right before they fight? He referred to himself as the White Habib. It was so funny. I remember thinking, like, what the hell? But then he went out and mauled that dude, his opponent in the Contender Series. Pretty much dominated him. Comes out, hits a flying triangle against a pretty good fighter, in my opinion, Cody Durden, and immediately retires. You know, I was super excited for the rest of his career because that's the type of fighter I like, man. I like guys that can get guys down and just maul them, wreck them on the ground, whether it be via submission or ground and pound. This guy can find subs. His BJJ is just relentless. He's always looking for better positions, trying to put it on you. But his stand-up, let's be honest, is not the best. His head movement is virtually not existent. And Charles Johnson is just way, way more well-rounded here than Jimmy Flick. Charles Johnson got his UFC debut against Muhammad Mokaev. And even in that fight, I think that goes to show, like, he has good enough submission defense, in my opinion, to not get submitted by Jimmy Flick. Mokaev was on his back, working the body triangle, working everything, really, for most of that fight, and he was able to withstand, get up, and last, and ended up losing the decision to Mokaev. But that was impressive as far as the submission defense, in my opinion. On the feet, it's not even going to be close. Charles Johnson is live to knock him out. I will say he is a new father, so he should have that dad power. We were going to talk about it later on the card. Dan Ige became a dad. He immediately knocked out one punch Gavin Tucker. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's an angle we could approach this. But I expect Charles Johnson to be able to withstand that first wave of Jimmy Flick trying to get him down over and over and over again, and eventually piece them apart. I can see a second or third round finish by Johnson, or even a dominant decision here, but I think he's going to knock out Jimmy Flick. So for my prediction, the two LFA champions fighting in the UFC, Charles Johnson to win via knockout in the third round. Up next, we have a flyweight fight between Allan Nascimento and Carlos Hernandez. Nascimento comes in with a 19-6 record, currently sitting as a huge minus 360 favorite. Carlos Hernandez on the other side coming in with an 8-1 record, currently sitting as a sizable plus 280 underdog. And I want to start with Carlos Hernandez. He's coming off his fight with Victor Altamirano, where he won via split decision, but I honestly thought he lost that fight. You can make an argument that Victor won. It wasn't a very convincing performance, in my opinion, from Carlos, and neither was his Dana White Contender Series fight where he got the contract. He's pretty average everywhere. He doesn't really stand out to me in any one specific area, and he's fighting a tough guy, man. Nascimento, even in his loss against Tagir Ulanbekov, when he got taken down multiple times, he's very active off his back, and I really like that because on the feet, he's going to be the longer guy here. He's going to have a reach advantage over Hernandez. He comes from a really good gym, shoot a box with Charles Oliveira and them. And those guys are kind of reckless, I'll be honest. They don't really care about striking defense coming back. Like, they don't care about strikes coming back. They just push forward and try to, put a pace on you. And obviously, we know that BJJ is really good. I expect Nascimento to have a significant grappling advantage in this fight and to essentially be safe anywhere this fight takes place. I understand why that line's so wide, but I do worry of a Carlos Hernandez flash knockout, but I shouldn't because he doesn't really get those. He wins via decision. Most of his fights go to decision. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes to the decision and Nascimento wins a 30-27 decision here. So for my official pick, I'm going with Nascimento via decision. The next fight should be an exciting one in the bantamweight division between Mateus Mendonça and Javid Basharat. Mateusz comes in undefeated with a 10-0 record, currently sitting as a plus 280 underdog. Javid Basharat on the other side coming in undefeated as well, 13-0, currently sitting as a minus 350 favorite. Javid Basharat will be 4 years older than the 23-year-old Mateusz here, have 3 inches of height and a 2-inch reach disadvantage to Mateusz here. Javid's actually really big for the division. He's going to be the bigger guy here, guys. And I'm not picking against Basharat anytime soon. This dude seems like he's the real deal. But I will say, man, Mateusz is not bad. I'm actually kind of surprised at the matchmaking of this fight. Mateusz strikes me as someone that you would want to, get behind and give him sort of a layup fight for the debut. And coming off the contender series game, Javid Basharat is the exact opposite of that. Javid definitely impressed, I feel like almost a lot of people, everybody, in his most recent fight against Tony Gravely. His grappling in that fight was legit. He has really good hands and just overall fights really smart, and that's something I really like in fighters. He doesn't put himself in bad spots, and he knows what to do. Like, he knows when to be aggressive, when not to be, when to push forward, when to, utilize his grappling. And like I said, yeah, he doesn't put himself in bad spots. Mateus Mendonça on the other side, just a super young, explosive Brazilian fighter, out of shooter box as well, just like Nascimento and Oliveira. And yeah, dude, those guys are ballers, man. Those guys will brawl like crazy, man. He has good striking, powerful striking, but I don't think he's just polished enough for someone like Basharat. Essentially, guys, this is a step up really early in his career, because I'm excited for Mateus in the UFC. His knockout in the contender series, dude, that was insane. Like, he crushed that guy in like a minute. And I don't know, it's hard to pick against Basharat in this spot. Someone's got to lose, and I feel like it's going to be the young Mateus here. So as far as the pick, give me Javid Basharat to win via decision. The only thing I got to worry about here is a flash knockout from Mateus, and I think he'll be able to withstand here, Javid. So let's go Javid via decision. Up next, we have a lightweight fight between Mateusz Rębecki and Nick Fiore. Rębecki comes in with a 16-1 record, currently sitting as a massive minus 610 favorite. Nick, on the other side, coming in undefeated, 6-0, making his UFC debut on short notice, sitting as a huge plus 450 underdog. Mateusz is 30 years old while Nick is 25, and Nick Fiore will also have a 4-inch reach advantage over Mateusz. One thing I gotta say right off the bat, guys, is Nick Fiore has never seen the second round ever in a pro MMA fight. And that's not because he's some sort of killer or savage or anything. It's because he's fighting straight bums. Like, bums on bums on bums. This is crazy looking at his strength of schedule, guys. He's fought the GOAT bum, the worst bum of all time, Jay Ellis. Do me a quick favor, look who this guy is. Like, look him up on Tapology or Google or something. Dude, this guy has, I don't know if he's reached 100 now, but at the time of fighting Nick, he had 98 professional losses, 15-98, and Nick fought this guy twice, and he's 6-0. Like, and the guy who won before this was like 5-19. I know he's a good grappler. From what I could tell, the kid can grapple. When he comes from a good camp, New England Cartel. They have a couple good guys, but what are we even doing? I'm pretty sure he just took his shot just to get in the UFC, took this fight. But how are you going to fight someone that's 5-19 and then get the call to be in the UFC? That's just something that blows my mind. On the other side, Mateus, in Preston's Dana White Contender Series fight, he looks like he could have a future at 155. But at minus 610, I get it. Like, he's probably going to beat Nick, honestly. But I'm not touching this fight. I'm not betting a prop inside the distance, over, under, none of that. I'm staying far away from this fight because I have no idea why this fight's even, like, this is like Dana White Contender Series fight. Like, anyway, yeah, this next big fat pass. Give me Mateusz Rębecki via decision. Up next, we have a banger of a fight in the middleweight division between Abdul Razak Alhassan and Claudio Ribeiro. Alhassan comes in with an 11-5 record, currently sitting at minus 110. Claudio, on the other side, coming off the Dana White Contender Series, making his debut, coming in with a 10-2 record, also currently sitting at minus 110. Now, I want to get into the tail of the tape real quick, guys, because everything points to Claudio here. He'll be 7 years younger, as Abdul is 37 years old, and he'll be the taller guy by 3 inches and have the longer reach by 4 inches. And that age is really, really significant to me. 7 years younger than Abdul here, who, let's be honest, just hasn't looked like himself ever since he got falsely charged with those terrible allegations 2 years ago. And it's crazy to think that at one point Abdul was 10-1, and he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. And I will say, guys, I'll be honest, it's hard to go and pick Abdul, which I will at the end of this little prediction, because one thing you don't do, guys, is you don't go into an MMA fight with Dale, the urban survival tactical guy, in the corner of your opponent and then lose. And that's exactly what Abdul did against Buckley, man. I was pissed. I had Abdul in that fight, and I think I might go to the Weller here again, because the one thing that I will say he has going for him, obviously we all know he's never won a fight that goes past the first round. So he's first rounder bust, and I just think that he's going to be able to catch Claudio, and if he doesn't, he's going to get knocked out trying. I'm not going to bet that at all. Not going to bet it. There's so many variants. Claudio, like I said, younger by 7 years, guy with longer reach, and he's a killer, man. That knockout on his Contender Series fight was scary. Left hook city and had the dude out, but Abdul, but neither guys can wrestle. I will say that this is going to be a stand-up fight for the whole entire fight. If anything, maybe gets pressed along the cage in the clinch. But I expect both guys to be swinging and banging from the beginning. Neither guy has very good cardio. Claudio's only been out in the first round twice. And like I said, guys, every time the fight leaves the first round, Abdul loses. So I'm going to go with the first round Abdul Razak knockout, but not confident at all. And I don't blame anyone betting on Claudio here. Like I said, 7 years younger, taller, younger guy, fighting a guy that seems to be fading in his career. He switched camps. He was at Fortis, and now he's at Team Elevation up there in Colorado. So maybe that helps his gas tank, because both Buckley and him look like they're going to die as soon as that bell rung in that third round, which, too, I will say, I was shocked that fight went the distance. So it's not out of the question, but it's more than likely going to go under. I think the under -1.5 is like -300 for this fight. Something crazy. So yeah, I expect a ton of violence in this fight. Gonna pick the veteran here in Abdul Razak Alhassan, though, to get the win via knockout. Up next is my personal main event for the card. We have Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Raoni Barcelos. Umar Nurmagomedov comes in undefeated, 15-0, sitting as a huge -700 favorite, guys. On the other side, we have Raoni Barcelos coming in with a 17-3 record, currently sitting as a massive +575 underdog. Just unheard of territory for someone like Raoni Barcelos. Let's get into the tail of the tape real quick. Umar Nurmagomedov, 26 years old. Barcelos, 35. So he is the older fighter by a lot. 35-year-old bantamweight. Never a good look, definitely. So Umar, 1 inch taller and has 2 inches of reach. Now, I have a lot to say about this fight. So, first of all, big time step up for Umar. His last fight was against Nate Maness. Before that, Brian Kelleher. Like, before that, his best win was probably Saidyuka Karkamanov. Raoni Barcelos is super well-rounded, guys. I know you would think Umar, you see that last name, Nurmagomedov, you think crazy good wrestler, but he's a really good striker, really good kicker. Loves his kicks. It's a really good question mark kick, and loves to go to the body and mix it up. And his striking is far superior to someone like his cousin Habib. There's two types of Dagestanis. Sometimes it feels like the Zabit types or the Habib types, and Umar is definitely the other way, the Zabit type. But Barcelos, man, super well-rounded Brazilian wrestling champ, and a legit striker. It's super interesting though, because when Raoni Barcelos was a massive favorite over Victor Henry, he lost. Victor Henry ended up winning as a +400 underdog, and it would be hilarious if Barcelos comes and does the same thing to Umar. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Umar's going to win. But I'm a gambler, guys. I bet on fights. This is almost like a matter of principle. Like, I get it. He's 35 years old, and he's probably going to get taken down and worn down. I mean, the Timur Valiev fight, it was a close fight, but I actually thought that you could make an argument for Raoni winning that fight. And so is he going to get out-grappled here, wrestle fucked by Umar? Maybe. Umar's just one of the smartest fighters you could find in the UFC. Doesn't ever put himself in a bad spot. But let's be honest, he's never had to get into a war. He's never had a real quote-unquote fight. He hasn't been tested, guys. And this is a big one. I know Raoni's ranked lower than Umar, but Raoni is a well-rounded fighter, guys. If Umar goes in and just cakewalks right here and submits him and gets him down and crushes him and chokes him out, I'll be legitimately shocked, because, man, Raoni is no slouch. I keep saying it, guys. So like I said, this might be a matter of principle. I just might have to bet that +500 line, because you'll never see this again. I was talking with Uncle Weezy on Twitter. Like, the level of fighter Raoni Barcelos is matched with that line, it's just hard to wrap your head around. Like, you'll never see that. But dude, Umar is just that guy. He's blue chip 5-star prospect. Like, this dude is this straight path to the moon and to the belt, really. But this is the first big step up, in my opinion, and I think he's gonna get it done. It's just a matter of how, because at -700, there's really no point. I even see some -800s of betting that, parlaying that. You gotta look at a method of victory, maybe over under a prop. But I can't find myself betting on this fight unless I'm betting on Barcelos money line. So I'm gonna pick Umar. I don't know if I'm gonna bet, but man, it's just, I feel like I have to. I feel like I'm forced to bet this. Like I said earlier, the fucking State Farm guy with the fish and the dollar, like, dangling in front of me. Oh man, it's gonna be hard to stay away from betting Barcelos here, but Umar should win. Wouldn't be surprised if he snatches up a submission here late, maybe second or third round. But I think for my official prediction, I'm going with Umar Nurmagomedov to win via decision. Up next we have a women's bantamweight fight between Ketlen Vieira and Raquel Pennington. Ketlen Vieira comes in with a 13-2 record, riding a 2-fight winning streak, sitting as a -120 favorite. On the other side, we have Raquel Pennington coming in 14-8, riding a 4-fight winning streak, coming in at +100. Vieira will be 3 years younger than Pennington, have a 1-inch height advantage and a 1/2-inch reach advantage. I think Ketlen Vieira is going to win this fight via decision, and I'd say I'm fairly confident in that pick. I would expect more money to come in on Ketlen. I understand why it is. Raquel Pennington, the way she fights, she's going to be looking to clinch Ketlen here, and I think she should find some success early, but as the fight goes, I actually like Ketlen striking more than Pennington, and especially on the ground. I think she has enough on the ground to not get dominated, and if she does find herself on bottom, to reverse position on Pennington. I will say one thing I do like going for Pennington is, dude, her strength of schedule is just way better than Vieira, 100%. And in her most recent fight, Ketlen Vieira, you could argue she's coming off a loss, no doubt. I had money on Holly Holm. I had money on Holly Holm via decision, and so when she got the win, I was obviously bummed out. But if you go and like look at that fight, I understand why she won, because Holly Holm just wasn't doing much with her position. She would get Ketlen pressed up against the clinch for pretty much the whole fight, but she wasn't doing much. She would just pitter patter, mixing some foot stomps, and the judges weren't really valuing control time. They're valuing the damage at distance, even if it was minimum from Ketlen Vieira in every round. And I just think that in 3 rounds here, she's going to be able to land the more significant shots. I like her volume, and I think she has enough tools to win this fight. So give me Ketlen Vieira to win via decision. Our next fight is in the middleweight division between Punahele Soriano and Roman Kopylov. Punahele coming in with a 9-2 record, currently sitting as a -160 favorite. On the other side, we have Roman Kopylov, who also comes in with a 9-2 record, currently sitting as a +130 underdog. Now, if you ask me, both these guys actually saved their jobs in their most recent fights. Both these guys are riding 2-fight losing streaks and were able to get the win via knockout. Punahele Soriano, like we all know, super powerful Hawaiian kid. Still young, relatively young in his career. I think he was about 30 years old. And he just had some couple bad losses back to back, and it was a big, I guess, stunt in his projection, you could say. Him getting out grappled the way he did against Maximov, I didn't see coming at all. And that fight actually ruined all his statistics. If you look at his statistics, other than that fight, he actually has some pretty good takedown defense, but his takedown defense is significantly bad considering Maximov took him down over and over and over and over again, something that I honestly didn't expect. And I also didn't expect him to not be able to knock out Brendan Allen if the fight ended up being a 15-minute striking fight, which it did, and for him never to be able to have any sort of advantage, whether it be with his power or even in grappling, getting Allen down. So there's been times where Punahele Soriano has definitely let me down as far as like what I expected to see out of him. But he got that knockout in his most recent win where Dolce, I don't know if he's UFC level, but it was a good shot. It showed me that like, okay, it probably did something for his confidence and put him right, back in that mental headspace. Whereas Roman Kopylov, getting submitted by Robertson is just such a bad look in that fight. He got submitted by a kickboxer and then ended up losing to Duria right after his 2-fight losing streak. He ended up getting the win in his most recent fight against De Chirico, who I don't even know if he's in the UFC still, but he's good. He's a good striker. He's not really a grappler trying to look at the grapple here. He has good takedown defense. I will give him that. But in those 2 losses, I just was not impressed at all, really. I'm definitely way more impressed with Punahele. I feel like his ceiling is way higher. I'm going with Punahele Soriano to win this fight. -160 is a fair price in my opinion, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us bet this. So my pick is going to be Punahele Soriano via decision. I do worry a little bit about his gas tank there toward the end of the fight, but I feel like he's going to be able to win the rounds with the more significant shots. And if anything, guys, hopefully, finally, we'll see him able to have a grappling advantage over Kopylov here, but it'll be tough. He has pretty good takedown defense and strong hips, so give me Soriano to win via decision. In the co-main event, we have a featherweight fight between Dan Ige and Damon Jackson. Dan Ige comes in with a 15-6 record, currently sitting as a -120 favorite. Damon Jackson on the other side coming in 22-4-1, sitting at +100. Dan Ige will be 3 years younger. We'd also be 4 inches shorter and have the same reach as Damon Jackson. I'm going with Dan Ige, the Hawaiian here, and I actually bet him. I have 1.2 units on him at -120 to win 1 unit, and I feel confident in this fight, dude. I know Damon Jackson's on a 4-fight winning streak, and he's looking good, but, I mean, let's be honest, it was against Charles Rosa. Kamala Kirk, Dan Argueta, who's on short notice, and that Pat Sabatini knockout. That Pat Sabatini knockout, hand up, I will say I had money on Pat, and that was impressive. I'll give Damon Jackson that. That was super, super impressive. Hats off to him. I didn't see that front kick coming, and neither did Pat Sabatini. But I don't think that Dan Ige is going to be able to, or I don't think he's going to be out grappled here by Damon Jackson. Dan Ige, the way he loses his fights recently, I mean, you could argue he's 1-5 in his last 6 fights. I thought he lost that Barbosa fight, bro. So he could honestly be 1-5 in the last 5 fights. So if he loses this fight, like, is he going to get cut? Because it's crazy, bro. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and he really needs this win. And I think he's going to get it, man. I think he has the wrestling to not get taken down at will here by Damon Jackson. And I definitely think that he has the stand-up to make it very competitive on the feet. And I definitely think that he has a power advantage here. He likes to go to the body and come up top after. And he comes from a very good camp in Extreme Couture. And they have a couple, guys on this card. I think they actually have 3 back-to-back-to-back. Puna, Ige, and Strickland. I know Basharat is from there too. So it's an Extreme Couture heavy card, but I like betting on guys, I'll be honest, from that gym. And I think Dan Ige has enough to win this fight at -120. I think that's fair. I know you could have got him at underdog odds earlier in the week. I wish I would have, but I'm still okay with -120, man. 3 years younger than Damon Jackson. And like I said, he's on a 4-5 winning streak, but Damon Jackson's not beating the best fighters either. Man, the Argueta guy, kid was on short notice, and even that fight, he started to fade in that 3rd round and let Argueta start getting to him pretty good. I think that Ige is going to have the cardio here the last 3 rounds, and I feel confident in this pick, man. Give me Dan Ige via 3-round decision, 30-27. In the main event, we have a switch-up. Kevin Gastelum got hurt on Monday during fight week, and Sean Strickland stepping up on short notice to take this fight against Nasruddin Imavov. This is super interesting, considering Sean Strickland fought 3 weeks ago against Jared Cannonier. This fight will be happening at 205 now, not 185, considering the short notice for Sean Strickland. So Nasruddin Imavov won't have to cut to 185. And that's interesting because we'll get to his gas tank issues here in a second, but I want to talk about Sean Strickland first. He's taking this fight on short notice. Obviously, he fought 3 weeks ago. By the time the fight starts, it'll be 4 weeks ago. But the thing is, guys, that was like during New Year's and Christmas. That's like arguably the worst couple weeks to be missing, because who knows what he was doing. So the fact that this is at 205 tells me, all right, he's not even close, not even anywhere near making 185, because usually they'll give a guy 10 pounds 50 pounds leeway for the short notice, but dude, 205 like that's crazy. Super interested to see how he looks, considering he's a jab merchant, you could say. He's going to stick the jab out and throw 500 jabs in the fight and probably land a good amount. Very good striking accuracy, pretty good striking defense. I know you could say he has bad striking defense when he's out here getting blasted by Pereira, but that was more of an IQ thing to me. Like he essentially could have had an advantage in the wrestling, which that's one thing a lot of people don't give him credit for. He has pretty good defensive and offensive wrestling, but he chooses to stand and bang and brawl. That's just the type of guy he is. He's one of those guys that's like, reminds me of Kevin Holland, like he's more of an entertainer, but like kind of like a head case, you could say. Imavov on the other side, comes to me, seems more like a cerebral fighter. In his most recent fight, we did have money on him against Buckley, and it was looking like easy money, cash money, cruising to a win for the first 2 rounds, and just like that, he just gasses. I don't know if it was like some sort of nerves or what, or I don't really know what it was, maybe an adrenaline dump, but he was clock watching multiple times in the round. That's never good in a 3-round fight, considering this is 5 rounds. But I'm going to chalk it up to maybe he was just nervous, or because I think that was the first card in like Paris or some shit, or France or something like that. And yeah, so like, I don't know. I was fighting in front of the home crowd. He is from France, fights out of there with Cyril Gahn, that same gym. And so yeah, that's the one thing I do worry about here is his gas tank holding up, because Sean's going to be there for 5 rounds, I'm assuming. But that's one thing, like, I don't understand about this fight. Like, how can you take this fight after fighting Jared Cannonier just a month ago? I don't care, like, even if you block a shot, guys, like, that still has to hurt. That still has to land on your wrists, on your arms, on your forearms, your shins, your thighs. Like, there is no way he's going into this, like, 100%. So, if anything, all I know, like, the narrative going into this fight is how will Imavov's gas tank going to hold up. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Sean fade here toward the end of the fight, because, man, he's got to be one durable motherfucker to be coming in here after taking a fight with Jared Cannonier and taking some damage, man. I know he didn't wear it, but he was getting hit. And like I said, even on shots you're blocking, that still fucking hurts, guys. So I'm on Imavov here, man. I don't know if I'm going to bet it. I want to see where this line goes. I did notice that he opened at like a -170 favorite, and money's been coming in on Strickland. So now it's a minus 110 both ways. So over under 4.5. They think it's going to go the distance. And man, I kind of lean toward inside the distance because there's just so many like variables, so many like random shit going on in this fight. It's at 205. It's on short notice. Nasruddin doesn't have to weight cut. Sean just fought 3 weeks ago. I mean, just wild stuff. I'm going with Nasruddin Imavov to finish Sean Strickland late in this fight. I don't know if it's going to be in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, but I think he's going to finish on Strickland. I'm interested to see how both these guys look at 205. It's going to be super random. The year is already off to a crazy start, but I'm going with Imavov via 4th round knockout. And now it's time to go over our official bets for UFC Vegas 67. Our first bets of the year, guys. So far, we have 2 moneyline bets. Our first bet, Punahele Soriano, minus 160, 1.6 units to win 1. Now, I know this line is at minus 150, minus 155 at some books, but I only have access to that one line right now, so I had to take it. I really think that he's going to win this fight. I think that he's going to be able to stay safe on the feet. I know Kopylov is a skillful kickboxer, has a lot of experience, but I think that Punahele is going to be able to land the more significant strikes, and in a fight where I hope that the refs, go off damage and not volume, I think that Soriano is going to be able to win the big moments of the fight. And if anything, I hope that one day, that day being Saturday, he's going to be able to pull out that wrestling card and use it on someone. It's going to be tough though on Kopylov. He has good, very good defensive grappling, but in a 15-minute striking fight, I think that Punahele is going to be able to find some big shots here and ultimately win a decision. Bet number 2, Dan Ige over Damon Jackson, minus 120, 1.2 units to win 1. Now, I know we could have had Dan Ige at plus money earlier in the week, but, you snooze and you lose. So at minus 120, I still think that's fair, and I might end up betting more. I think that he's a better overall fighter here. He's super well-rounded. He's fought way better competition than Damon Jackson. This is a step down in competition for Dan Ige. This is a step up in competition for Damon Jackson. I think that he's going to struggle getting Dan Ige down, the shorter, stocky guy down here, and definitely going to struggle to control him. Now, who knows? We've seen Ige controlled by pretty much everyone that beats him. So if we sit here on Saturday and we see him get just mauled again, then I'm an idiot. But at minus 120, I'm willing to find out. So I bet 1.2 units on Dan Ige to beat Damon Jackson. So that'll do it, guys. That's our show. That's our episode. Thank you so much for watching. We have a big pay-per-view next week, so make sure you tune in for that. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think about my picks. Super pumped for this year. Got a lot of money to make on these bets. So, like I said, man, really appreciate all you guys watching. Let me know what you think about the show, and we'll see you guys next week. Good luck on your bets. Peace.